Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to be creating the game whac-a-mole. And for those of you who don't know, whac-a-mole is a very simple game where you have 9 tiles, and each tile there is a hole where the mole can pop out of. And the goal is to whack the mole by clicking on it. So I decided to make the game a bit more fun. I spiced it up by making it a Mario themed game. And so for each hole we have a pipe, and this is a mole from the Mario franchise, and we also have the piranha plant. So basically the goal of the game is to tap on the mole every time it comes out of the pipes without tapping on the piranha plant, because like with Mario games, if you touch the piranha plant, you lose. So that's how the game works. So let me just quickly show you. So if I tap on the mole, my score goes up, and if I accidentally tap on the plant, the game is over. Okay? And very quickly before we begin coding, I just want to ask that you subscribe to the channel. On my channel, you'll find various tutorials on game projects. So I have a tutorial on Flappy Bird that was released a week ago. And I also have Space Invaders, Chrome Dinosaur Game, Wordle, Sudoku 2048, and many other games. And I will continue to add to the list as the year goes on. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out. And you can also find the list on kenyipcoding.com. Alright, so before we begin coding, you want to download the repo from the GitHub link in the video description so that you can get these images. And once you've done that, just copy and paste the images into your directory. Alright, let's begin. Let's start off with the HTML. So doc type HTML, HTML. Let's add a head tag. Meta charset is equal to UTF-8. Meta name is equal to viewport. Content is equal to width equals device width. Initial scale is equal to 1.0. Let's also give a title to our web page. So title, we're going to call it whac-a-mole. Let's also link our style sheet. So link rel is equal to style sheet. href is going to be mole.css. And finally our JavaScript script source is going to be mole.js. Oops. So that's it for our head tag. Let's also add our body tag, and I'm going to add a header h1, and this is going to be the name of the game, so it's just whac-a-mole. Let's also add a second header, and I'm going to give it an ID of score so that I can use JavaScript to update this tag. So we're going to set it to 0. So this is going to keep track of our score, and we're going to have a div tag for our game board. So I'm going to create a div tag and give it an ID board, and I'm going to use JavaScript to populate the inside of this tag. So we're going to have a 3x3 board. Okay. Alright, so if I open up the HTML file, this is what we have so far. We have the header 1 and header 2. So this is the title of the game, and this is the score. Alright, so for the CSS, we're going to style the body. Font family is going to be Arial. Text align, let's center the text. And I'm going to give it a background of /mario-bg.jpg. So it's going to be this file over here. And then we're going to set background size to cover. Alright, now if I refresh the page, you can see we have our lovely background image and our text is centered. Now let's style our board. So we gave an ID of board over here. So to access that, we're going to use a hash board. And I'm going to set the width to 540 pixels and the height to 540 pixels. And I'm going to set a background color of green so that you can see it. So if I refresh the page now, you can see we have our board. This is our div tag, which is 540 pixels by 540 pixels. Now I'm going to center the board, so margin 0 auto, and display flex, flex wrap, wrap. So these two lines are going to make sure that our tile divs are going to be from left to right and top to bottom without falling out of the board. So it's going to be 3 by 3. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have our game board at the center of the page. Now, instead of this green color, I'm going to change it to use this soil background. So I'm going to do background. URL is going to be /soil.png. And I'm going to set the background size to cover. And let's also add a border of 3 pixels, solid and white. And let's also make the corners of the board round. So I'm going to do border radius equal to 25 pixels. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have our game board here. We have the soil background image. There's a white border and the edges are round. Alright, so now for our JavaScript. When our page loads, so I'm going to do window.onload is equal to a function. And within this function, I'm going to call setGame. So let's define setGame here. So in this setGame function, I'm going to set up the grid for the game board in our HTML. So the game is a 3 by 3 tile. So there are 9 tiles. So for let I equal 0, I less than 9, I plus plus, I'm going to do let tile equal to document.createElement div. So what I just did was create a div tag like so in JavaScript, and I'm going to set the ID to i.toString. So I goes from 0 to 9, but then because it's I less than 9, it's actually going from 0 to 8, so it stops at 9. So I is going to be from 0 to 8, and we are assigning the div tags an ID from 0 to 8. And this is important because we're going to use this ID to figure out which tile was clicked on and to see if it's the tile that has the mole or the piranha plant. So this is why we assign each tile an ID. And then what we're going to do is document.getElement by ID board and append child tile. So what we're doing is we're taking the 9 tags that we create in JavaScript and we're accessing this tag with the ID board, which is this one, and we're inserting the tags inside this div tag. Okay? Alright, so if I refresh the page, you're not going to notice any difference, except if I click inspect, within this board, we have our 9 div tags. Okay? So our board has div tags. There are 9 div tags. So within our board, for each div tag, I'm going to set the width to 180 pixels and the height to 180 pixels as well. And I'm going to set a background image URL of pipe.png and a background size of cover. So this is going to be the background image. And the reason we're doing 180 pixels by 180 pixels for each tile is our board has the dimensions 540 pixels by 540 pixels, and our game is a 3 by 3 board, so each tile should be a third of the width and height. So we're dividing this into 3 by 3 tiles, which is equal to 180 by 180 per div. Okay? Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have our 9 tiles, and each one is 180 by 180, and we have our 9 pipes. Each one is actually a background image. Alright, so now that we have our pipes, let's create the mole. So the mole is going to spawn randomly in one of these tiles. So up here, I'm going to add a variable called current mole tile, and this will help us keep track of which tile has the mole. And then down here, I'm going to create a function called setMole. So within this function, let's add a variable mole, and it's going to be document.createElement image. So we're going to create an image tag, and mole.source is going to be /montymole.png. So this is the name of the mole. So this is going to be an image tag with the mole, which is this image over here. And now I need to randomly place the mole on one of the tiles. So to do that, let's get a random number, and I'm going to create a random tile function. So get random tile, let num equal to math.floor math.random times 9. And then let's return num.toString. So what does this do? Math.random returns a number between 0 and 1. And if I multiply this by 9, this range becomes 0 to 9, but it does not include 9. And if I round it down using math.floor, we're going to get an integer from 0 to 8. So these are all integers. Okay? And of course, I return the number as a string so that we can use it for the ID. So after we've gotten a random number, I'm going to set cur-mole tile to document.getElement by ID, and it's going to be that number. And then for the tile, so this is going to be the random tile, I'm going to append child mole. So it's going to take a random tile, which is a div tag, and add the image tag inside it. Alright, so now that we've created the function, let's call it. So within our set game, I'm going to do set interval, set mole, and we're going to call this function every 2000 milliseconds. So 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds, set mole is being called, and it's going to place the mole on a tile. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have our mole over here, and it's a very big mole, so we need to add some styling to make it smaller. So our board has 9 divs, and each div can have an image. So if the div has an image, that means it has the mole. So I'm going to do board div image, and I'm going to set the width to 100 pixels and height to 100 pixels. So this is all image tags inside the tile divs. Okay. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see the mole appears here, and it's smaller, and it appears here as well. And that is because we did not clear the previous pipe that had the mole. So within the setMole function, we're going to clear the previous tile. So if cur-mole tile, we're going to set cur-mole tile.inner HTML equal to an empty string. So this is going to clear all the tags within this div tag. Alright, so I refresh the page, you can see the mole is now hopping around. And every time it moves to a different tile, the previous tile gets cleared. So now that we have our mole, let's create another function that does exactly the same thing, but for the piranha plant. So over here, I'm going to add another variable, cur-plant tile. And similarly, I'm going to create a function called setPlant. And it's going to be pretty much what we have for setMole. If cur-plant tile dot-inner HTML, we're going to set it to an empty string. Let's plant equal to document.createElement image. Plant.source is going to be piranha plant.png. Okay, so it's going to be this plant image. And then we're going to get a random number using the same function, random tile, cur plant tile is equal to document.getElementsById num, and cur plant tile, we're going to append child the plant. So it's going to append this plant image tag. So it's exactly the same as the setMole function, except we just changed the image and the variable names. And likewise, we need to call this function. So I'm going to set interval of setPlant, and I'm going to make it every 3000 milliseconds. And let's set it, actually, let's make it a bit faster. So instead of 3000, I'm going to make it 2000 for the plant. So it's going to be 1 second for the mole and 2 seconds for the plant. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have our plant and mole hopping around. And if you notice here earlier, and here as well, there's an issue in that the mole and the piranha plant might occupy the same tile. So they'll both be stacked on top of each other, which is not what we want. So let's fix that. Alright, so to fix this issue, after we get our random number, before we move the mole to another tile, I'm going to check if cur plant tile and cur plant tile .id is equal to this number, that means the tile already has the plant on it. So in that case, I'm going to return. That way, we are not going to set the mole for this round. And I'm going to do the same thing for the plant. If cur mole tile and cur mole tile.id is equal to num, return. Okay. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you'll notice that sometimes only the mole or the plant will appear, and that is because of the conflict we mentioned earlier. And so we resolved it by saying that if there's a conflict, we're only going to show either the mole or the plant. So now that we have both the mole and the plant on our game board, let's make these tiles clickable so that we can finally make the game work. Alright, so up here in our JavaScript file, I'm going to add a variable called score, set it to 0, and game over. And I'm going to set this to false. So when we click on a tile, we want to check to see if there's a mole on it or the piranha plant. So over here, I'm going to add an event listener. It's going to listen for a click, and if we click on the tile, it's going to call select tile. So we're going to create a function called select tile. So down here, I'm going to do function select tile, and I'm going to check if this is equal to cur mole tile. So this refers to the tile that was clicked, and we're basically checking to see if that tile is the same tile that contains the mole image. So if that's the case, I'm going to increment the score by 10, and I'm going to do document.getElementsById score, which is this one, this header tag over here. And I'm going to set the inner text equal to score.toString. So this is going to update the score for the header tag. Else, if this is equal to cur plant tile, then I'm going to set document.getElementsById score. I'm going to notify the player that the game is over and give them the score. So the only difference is between these two lines, I added this game over text. So I'm going to set game over to true here. Okay. So now if I refresh the page and if I click on the mole, the score increases by 10 points each click. And if I click on the piranha plant, we see game over. But the thing is, I can still click on the mole and increase the points. So I need to make a check in our JavaScript. If the game is over, we don't want to set the mole anymore. So if game over, I'm just going to return. And likewise with the plant, if game over, let's also return. And we want to add it here as well, so that if it's game over, the player should not be able to select the tile. So I'm going to return here as well. Alright, so I refresh the page and I click on a mole, the score goes up. And if I accidentally click on the piranha plant, you can see game over. Both the plant and the mole, they will not change tiles. And I cannot click on the mole for more points. Okay? So that's pretty much how the game works. And one nitpick is I can actually drag this and highlight these image tags. So what I'm going to do is, inside our CSS for our image tags, I'm going to add these lines of code to make it so that the image tags are not draggable or selectable. And I'm going to copy and paste this code in the video description. Okay, so now if I try to drag the images or highlight them, it will not work. So that's just a little nitpick. When you're playing the game, you don't want that blue square to pop up. It's a little distracting. But yeah, that's it for this video tutorial. You have a fully functional game of whack-a-mole. And for those of you who want to keep on working on it, some features you might want to add are perhaps a time limit. Maybe you want the game to only last 60 seconds. And another thing you can add is you can make multiple piranha plants spawn in different tiles so that there's a higher chance of the player losing. So that's pretty much the game. And if you found the tutorial helpful, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.